Well, I am back. I am back in green, and it's been 3 days, or actually 4 days, since I last done a video, and I did say that there was no guarantee that I was gonna do a power rankings, and that there's no guarantee that I might be doing the preview and the review video during my trip. Well, guess what happened? I didn't really do it, and it's not because of the Wi-Fi was the reason why it didn't make me want to do the video. The Wi-Fi was actually pretty decent, good enough to at least watch kind of a MLS match, kind of like in medium quality. But the problem why I couldn't do any video was because of this. And as you can see right here, my phone is absolutely crap. So what happened was that when I was leaving the airport, when I got down to Miami, I accidentally dropped my phone. And it smashed right into the concrete floor at the airport. And yeah, it got completely damaged. And most likely, I'm going to have to get a new phone. Well, to be fair, I was thinking about getting a new phone since this, of course, is an iPhone 6 Plus. And that this is almost 4 years now. And usually when a phone is 4 years old, you need to like replace it. I think I had this for 3 years now, so I probably will upgrade to the X. But yeah, it is completely smashed. And one thing you notice right here, I'm not quite sure you guys can see it clearly, but the front part of the camera is all smashed up. And because of that, I couldn't do a video on that. I couldn't really just use the camera and just like do this to do a video because the front camera just got all smashed up. And this is going to be a huge problem in my next match vlog, because now I can't use the front camera. What I'm going to have to do is that I'm going to have to do like this to try to record. And I just thought that that was just a little bit too much of hassle when I try to do that. And the fact that when I forgot to bring my webcam and also my microphone. Originally, I was going to bring it to me so that I can just do it without using my phone to record it. But I didn't bring it, and because of that, I had no other option to actually record a video. So, yeah, that is pretty much the reason why I didn't do a video. It's a very dumb reason, and it's all my fault for dropping my phone. But guess what? That is how things sometimes goes, and you know about iPhone, and if you ever have owned an iPhone, you know how easily that they can break. Like, simply, if you don't have a protective coat and you just drop it on the floor, it's gonna smash up 10 out of 10. But yeah, that of course is the quick reason of why I did not do a video during my trip. But now let's get into what I'm going to be talking about in this video. And that is, I'm going to do a review of what I missed, because I did miss a couple of important things. But the first thing we got to talk about is the Columbus Crew situation. And I so desperately want to make this part of the video that if I didn't break my phone, I would immediately talk about it on Wednesday, because, you know, on Wednesday there was a big kind of vote that they had to do in terms of getting the stadiums, and that I think the Austin City Council voted to see if they want to get the stadium deal for Anthony Precourt, and they voted yes. It was a 7-4 favorite that Precourt will have the green light to build the stadium. And obviously this is a devastating kind of blow to the Save the Crew campaign. But one thing I will say about this situation is that for people think that this is going to be the decision where the Crew will be moving out of Columbus and go to Austin, then you are wrong. This is just a stadium deal. There is still no official announcement that Precourt has officially announced that he will move his team. It's only the stadium deal that is done. And the fact that I think also the Columbus City Council are keep filing lawsuits against MLS and also against Precourt in terms of the way that he broke some rules in the Ohio law book, which I'm not even gonna get to because, you know, I don't do politics and I don't know much about politics, but it's just some kind of rule that they're trying to sue Precourt and and his sporting company, which is PSV. And yeah, we're gonna still have to find out what's gonna happen is the next step, because this whole situation with the crew moving to Austin and all this stadium issue is still very, very complicated. And although Precourt has won the first battle of getting the stadium, it doesn't mean that he can just literally move his team there. There's still so many complicated thing that is, and there is still no guarantee the fact that the crew is gonna move out of Austin. That, I think, that is probably the biggest important news of them not going to Austin, and that they're not gonna move out of Columbus as of now. But if there's more development news, I will of course talk about it. I hope that the Columbus crew will stay in Columbus and doesn't move in Austin. I mean, I've been hearing people on Twitter talk about how, well, Columbus, moving to Austin, I think that's just best for business, and the fact that this is happening in all kind of other American sports and stuff like that. Yeah, I know it has happened to other American sport, but first of all, do you think moving to Austin in a city that had no soccer history, and the only soccer history that I remember was when they had a team in the USL and it failed? Like, after just 1 year, they moved to Orlando City, and that's it. So it's been proven that Austin is a city that has failed in the soccer kind of complex. And two, MLS should not be compared to other sports. We are trying to be unique. We're not going to try to be like NBA, NFL, or MLB, where teams just can like move around. There's just something about MLS and just something about soccer, and the general rule about soccer or football, depending on what you said, that you do not just simply relocate a team because you want more money. So hopefully that won't happen. But again, like I said, more news on that. If there's more news coming up, I will of course talk about it on this channel. But of course, that is not the only news that happened this week. The second news I want to talk about is the Miami logo. And since I was down in Miami, and I actually did like a tour where I didn't actually go to where the stadium is gonna be, because I actually don't know where it is, but I did go on to kind of like a little cruise around Biscayne Bay, and I did see David Beckham's house, and I'll tell you what, that house actually looks very, very nice. But speaking, of course, with David Beckham, he has now put his kind of logo, I would say. I don't think it's official yet. I think it was just kind of like a leak. But for those of you that have already seen the logo, basically the logo is black and pink, and it basically has two kind of bird that look like the Minnesota United logo, although I don't think that's a loon. I think people say that that's actually a flamingo. And to be fair, I will say that that's not a bad kind of logo when I first look at it. Although one thing that I wish they could have done is that maybe they, instead of putting black in there, they should have just gone with turquoise and purple. I mean, I get the purple of why they put it there because of the Miami Vice kind of themes and stuff like that. But I kind of wish that they actually kind of put maybe like turquoise. That would be like, if the logo was turquoise and pink, that would be classic Miami color. But yeah, it's not a bad logo. Again, I don't know if it's an official logo or whatsoever. And also, one thing that is very unique about the logo is that if you see on the bottom, it says 2020 in a Roman numeral number. So does that mean that Miami is going to be coming in 2020? Or maybe they're going to have to like fix it if they cannot be in the league in 2020. And the other thing that is also interesting about the logo is that I think we might know what the Miami team name is, and it looked like they are going to go with Inter Miami, because if you look around the crest, it says Internacional de Club Football Miami. So it looks like they're going to go with Inter Miami. So that is pretty much another European kind of type name that is ripped off in MLS. I mean, this is just plain copy from Inter Milan. And I kind of wish Miami would have gone with a little bit of different. I mean, I wish they just called themselves Miami Vice FC. That would be just so much cooler than what Inter Miami is. But I guess nowadays, new teams always have to come up names like Atlanta United, or Minnesota United, or even like Inter Miami in this instant. I hope Nashville won't call themselves Nashville United or Nashville City or Nashville Inter or Atletico Nashville. Just try to stay kind of like a classic kind of name, but or not a classic name, but kind of like a just something that is known for Nashville, not just copy some European kind of type of name. But besides those kind of news, I of course will also get to kind of talk about the review of what happened in those two games. And before I start the review, I want to give a big apology and a big sorry to LAFC and RSL fan, because when I did the preview at the airport, I forgot that RSL versus LAFC was another match that happened in the midweek. And I'm pretty sure a lot of LAFC fans were not happy that I did not talk about that game. And, I completely forgot about it. And I think my only excuse of why I forgot about it was because that it was like 5 in the morning when I did that video. Well, 6 in the morning exactly. And I only had 3 hours of sleep previous night. So I didn't really think very well, and that I literally just forgot about that game. But talk about that game, and by the way, I only watched 1 out of the 3 games that happened in the midweek. I rarely had any time whatsoever, and I actually did watch part of the LAFC versus RSL match. I think I turned off after half hour because I was incredibly tired. And keep in mind that match started at 10 o'clock in Miami time, and that it was 10 p.m. Eastern time when that game kind of kicked off. So I only watched a bit, but I did watch the 2 Christian Ramirez goal that was scored by LAFC. And I know some LAFC fan that say, what do you think about the Christian Ramirez deal now that he, of course, it is able to score some goals for us, and that you said before that this wasn't a good deal. Well, the thing is, I never said that it wasn't a really good deal. I just said that it was kind of a confusing deal of why do they need another striker. And yeah, Christian Ramirez got 2 very good goals, but still, I just think that they still need somebody in that midfield. They could have got a midfielder there instead of getting another striker, because they already have tons of attacking pieces on their roster, and I just don't know why they do need to add another striker to add in more depth in that striker position when it's pretty clear the midfield is the biggest issue right now for LAFC. And still, Ramirez, of course, scoring those 2 goals, and I think that is his first ever start for LAFC. I know this is the second time he's been playing for LAFC, but I think this is actually his first start. So yeah, certainly a very dream kind of start debut from him. And for LAFC, certainly a pretty good win for them. They finally snapped out of this kind of mini 5-game kind of winless skid that they had. Although the reason why I don't really say that LAFC should be panicking after this 5-game skid, and the fact that they are actually closer to be dropping out of the playoff line than they're actually going to try to go at the top. The reason why I don't say that they should be worried about missing the playoffs is because that was a tough stretch, okay? I mean, they had a stretch of 6 games in 18 days, and they're still in the middle of this 6 games in 18 days kind of stretch where you're going to have games that you're going to drop points. I mean, even the best team in the world, when you have that kind of stretch, they are going to at least drop some points. And the fact that if you look at those games during that stretch and how tough it is, and you got teams like the Red Bulls and Portland that they had to face, that is understandable of why they did drop a lot of points during that stretch. But it also kind of gave me a point where I just think that they could be in a bit of a trouble when playoff time come if they cannot beat those good opponents. Because what I've seen for LAFC this season is that they've been playing very well against teams that are not very good. But when they do play against very good teams, then yeah, that is a bit of a question mark doing that time. And at times they just do not look good when they play against the big team, especially when they go on the road. So it will be very interesting to see where LAFC is going to finish, and that if they don't finish first place, they're going to have to face they're going to have to eventually face going on the road in those playoff game, and it's going to be interesting to see how they will handle it. But as for RSL, well, this is bad. And I said it before with RSL of how they can't win on the road, and the fact that, not only now they can't win on the road, but they've started to drop points at home. And I've been saying that if RSL need to make the playoff, they got to win all their home game. Well, it seemed like that isn't going to happen because with the fact that in the last two games they've dropped points at home. But now they really need to get something on the road. And although this game was a bit of a tough one to get points on the road, you just wonder if this RSL team does not get something on the road, not get a win or two on the road, then I guarantee you that they're not going to make the playoffs. Because right now, if you look at the teams behind, like Vancouver, who are only 2 points behind them, and I think they now have one more game in front of them. Actually, let me just quickly do a little cheat sheet and see if they're actually 1 game. Yeah, they have 1 game in hand, or the Whitecaps have 1 game in hand of RSL, and that's the same thing for the Seattle Sounders. Actually, 2 games in hand for the Sounders over RSL. Yeah, you better believe that if you're an RSL fan, you are panicking, because right now those two teams are just charging up the table, and they are smelling that 6th spot and that final playoff spot like blood. And I just think that if RSL doesn't get their act together, this team is not gonna make the playoffs. This team is gonna fall short again like last year, and unless if this team does not go on a good run like they did last season, this team is not gonna make the playoffs. And it's a shame to see RSL not make the playoff, because they have been pretty good teams this year, but the problem is they just cannot win on the road, and it just feels like the midfield is kind of a little bit inconsistent, and the fact that I think they definitely need a striker. Like, seriously, why in the world does this RSL team still think Corey Bear is their best option? I mean, Corey Bear, I will say that he has done relatively a decent job in that striker role, and he has scored a couple of goals, but seriously, if you think that he's going to be the guy that you're going to depend on as the guy that's going to score you goal, and that's the striker that's going to score you goals, yeah, I'm sorry, that is not going to work out. So yeah, I'm very surprised RSL did not decide to go for a striker. They could have got Christian Ramirez and use him as a striker, and if they did get him, then I really think that it would definitely help them in terms of their playoff chances. But because they didn't do anything in the transfer window, and they did not address their obvious issue of needing a number 9, that is probably one of the reasons why they're going to miss the playoffs this season. But in terms of the other games, the DC United versus Portland game ended 4-1, and it wasn't 4-1 in favor of Portland. It was 4-1 in favor of DC United, and I think this win for DC United not only brings a big message to people that, hey, we're not out of this playoff race yet, and maybe we are getting back into this playoff race, but it just shows you how that this DC United team could potentially make the playoffs, despite the fact that they do have these kind of tough schedule. And who would have thought that Wayne Rooney, of all the people to talk about him being kind of slow, and that he's kind of like he's pretty much done and just washed up, and that he has no more kind of left in him. Well, in these 2 games, he had got an assist, and he also have 2 goals, and that assist was the game-winning goal in that last game against Orlando City, and those 2 goals that were scored in this game also were half of the goals that were scored for DC United, and he also scored the winning goal in this game. So yeah, I mean, for DC United, certainly they are heading up on a high. Although one thing I will say about them is that, I know some people will say that they're back in the playoff race and stuff like that, and that, they could potentially make up some ground. I think they're only 5 points or 6 points behind Montreal. I think they're 6 points behind Montreal, and they certainly have a bunch of games in hand over Montreal. I mean, they play the least amount of games so far in MLS with 21, so they certainly can make up that ground. But I just wonder for DC United, one, can they do this again against other big team, and I think we'll probably find that out when they play against Atlanta this Sunday. And the fact that they were facing against a Portland Timber side that had to travel all the way across the other side of the country to play this midweek game, and we know how when teams have a short week and they have to travel all the way across the other side of the country to play an away game, or even just play a home game after going to the other side of the country to play an away game, they always tends to struggle, and it just feels like that fatigue level did show for the Portland Timbers. So I wouldn't give them, I wouldn't say that DC United should be just immediately think that they can just potentially make the playoffs and just jump to conclusion that they might be having a big chance of making the playoffs, but I will still say that their chances of making the playoffs have just dramatically improved with these two wins than it was a couple of weeks ago. Because if they would have lost this game, then I would say that their playoff hope is dead. Like, it's one thing to beat teams that are pretty easy, like Orlando City, for example, or even the Rapids, or even Vancouver, of those 3 wins that they got at Audi Field, but it's another animal if they cannot beat against good team like the Portland Timbers. And we're gonna find out when they play against Atlanta, will they actually really kind of show up and can actually get some point out of that. But other than that game, we also have the LA Galaxy versus Colorado Rapids game, and that game of course ended 2-2. And for the Galaxy, again, dropping points at home, and again dropping points when they had the lead late in the game. I mean, this defense, holy crap, it is absolutely garbage. I mean, alongside with Orlando City or even Minnesota or even my Quakes defense, this is one of the worst defense in the league. And whenever I see David Bingham give up a soft goal, which he did in that second goal, and I know some people will say, well, that goal was deflected. Nah, he should have easily saved that. I mean, he should have easily just tried to palm that one away. And the fact that that ball was kind of deflected outside the 18-yard box, so he should have easily saved that. But seriously, with this Galaxy defense, this is the only reason why this team is just not being one of the best team in the Western Conference. I mean, even Zlatan said it himself about how this team doesn't deserve playoffs, and I kind of had to agree with him with the way that this defense is going and with the way that this attack is just clearly carrying this team. And I just have a feeling eventually that attack might fizzle out a little bit, and if this defense does not improve, then this team could be facing a possibility where maybe they might somehow just slip out of the playoffs. And even if they do make the playoffs, if you have that kind of defense going into the playoffs, then you're probably are not going to last in the playoffs for a very long time. And those 2 goals, like I said, that they gave up was just very kind of soft goals to gave up. And right now the Galaxy, they just cannot win a game. They're back to where when we were talking about back in June and how bad that defense is and how they were still kind of drawing games and stuff like that. Yeah, we're still seeing the same thing happen again for the Galaxy this time. And unless if they don't fix that defense, this team could maybe, I think maybe I was a little bit kind of harsh to say that they might miss the playoffs, but if they do make the playoffs and that it's still kind of the same defense that we've been seeing so far, then this team is not going to go very far. I guarantee you that they're going to be out of the playoffs after the first round, just because the defense is just absolutely garbage. But for the Rapids, 3 games unbeaten now, and maybe the Rapids might have turned a corner or something like that, although I still don't think they're gonna potentially make the playoffs. I mean, come on, the Rapids are 11 points out of the playoff race, and unless they go on just an absolute tear and just win the rest of the game, I don't know if they're gonna actually be in the playoffs. But I really think maybe the reason why the Rapids start playing much better is because of the Callan Acosta kind of deal, and how that has really lifted that midfield and kind of really just lifted the confidence of this team. And certainly if the Rapids can play like this in the beginning of the season, or even next season, if they can continue this kind of form, then yeah, maybe they can potentially get back into the playoffs. But still, I think it's just a matter of too little too late for the Rapids. They still have so much ground to make up for, and even in these free game unbeaten streak, the team that they play, the Galaxy, the Quakes, and also the Galaxy again. So they played twice against LA, and we know that LA has a bad kind of defense, and they also play against the Quakes, and you know how the Quakes are this season. So I wouldn't say that they've been playing some of the best team in the league, and because of that, I just don't know. Like, when they do play against the best team in the league, or when they just go on the road, for instance, I just don't know if they can really match to that, and I just think that this kind of, maybe a little kind of optimism from the Rapids fan after they go on a free game unbeaten streak, they need to try to keep themselves a little bit down and just not get too over the top and say that they can potentially make the playoffs. I mean, like I said, they're 11 points out of the playoff race. That is a lot of points. And yeah, that of course is kind of the review of the MLS action in the midweek. And before, of course, I end this video, I will talk about one more thing, and this is something that I'm pretty sure a lot of people want me to kind of feel like, why don't you talk about the Canadian Championship? And the Canadian Championship involved MLS team in it, and I do agree that I did kind of disrespect the Canadian Championship by not talking about them. Consider the fact that that championship only has like 6 teams, and that it's not like the US Open Cup whatsoever. I mean, it's kind of like the US Open Cup for Canada, but it's not. It's just kind of like a little mini kind of domestic kind of tournament. But congratulations to TFC winning the Canadian Championship again for the 3rd year in a row, and they will be going to CCO. And to be fair, I think this is the best for not only TFC going back to CCL, but also for MLS, because if you look at this game, and as much as you would want the Whitecaps to finally get over the hump, remember the Whitecaps has been really struggling whenever they get into this stage of the game, as they always tends to lose the Canadian Championship final and finish 2nd place, and they did it again this season. But it just feels like if the Whitecaps got that CCL spot, I just think that they're not gonna do as well as what TFC would do with that CCL spot. And this is no disrespect to the Whitecaps, but I just think with TFC and with the way that they certainly are going to be focused a lot on CCL this season, and I'm pretty sure a lot of their fans know that, if it takes sacrificing MLS Cup and maybe not making the playoffs to get ready for CCL because of how close they came last time, then they're definitely all for it. And by the way, for those of you that don't know what happened in the Canadian Championship, well, in the first leg it was a 2-2 draw, and at that point you would think that maybe Vancouver might have a chance to do something in the Canadian Championship and might win it finally after coming in 2nd for so many times. Well, that didn't happen because TFC completely destroyed them 5-2. Josie Altidore, who of course is suspended in MLS but not suspended in the Canadian Championship, got 3 goals and got a hat-trick in that game. And yeah, like I said, congratulations to TFC winning the Canadian Championship, and I just hope this time when they go to CCL, they can definitely finish the job and actually win the whole tournament. Because I think with this squad, it's a very similar squad to the one that they made the run in CCL, and maybe they're going to add a little bit more pieces in terms of their squad to make it stronger so that they can definitely win CCL this time. But hopefully they will do a little bit better, and hopefully maybe they can finally, for the first time ever, that an MLS team can win CCL and finally kind of get the kind of like what many people criticize about MLS and saying that it's a kind of a small league, and that MLS versus Liga MX comparison can kind of shift a little bit over MLS, and talk about how it's certainly started to grow much better and get into that competition of Liga MX too. So yeah, that of course is pretty much of what I have missed in the last 4 days. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. I will of course do the match preview right about maybe 2 hours from now, and after I finish uploading this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.